In 1865, a painting was hung in the most prestigious art show in the world, and people got so angry they tried to attack it with their umbrellas. Guards had to move it to the ceiling of the gallery, above eye level, just so nobody could touch it. The painting wasn't violent. It wasn't political. It was just a woman lying on a bed, looking straight at the viewer. That painting was Olympia by Édouard Manet. And to understand why it caused a full-blown scandal, you have to understand what painters were allowed to do with the female body and what Manet did instead. For centuries, European painters had one safe way to paint a naked woman: turn her into a goddess. The trick was simple. If she's a goddess, she's not really naked, she's idealized. The nudity becomes classical, timeless, untouchable. Nobody in a room, no husband, no priest, no critic, has to admit they're just looking at a naked woman for pleasure. Mythology gave everyone cover. Manet took one of the most famous versions of this, Titian's Venus of Urbino, painted in 1538, and used almost the exact same pose. Same reclining body, same hand near the hip, same little dog. Except Manet replaced the dog with a black cat, arching its back. And instead of a serene goddess in some soft Renaissance dreamland, he painted a real Parisian woman in a real Parisian bedroom, staring dead into the eyes of whoever was looking at her. That stare was the crime. Who was actually in the painting? The woman is named Olympia, which, in 1865 Paris, was basically a nickname courtesans used. Everyone looking at this painting knew exactly what Olympia meant. This wasn't a goddess. This was a modern, working, transactional woman, and she knew you were looking at her, and she didn't care. She's not shy. She's not asleep. She's not caught in a private moment the way earlier nude paintings pretended to show. Her hand isn't modestly covering anything. It's resting there almost defiantly. Around her neck, she wears a black ribbon. On her feet, one small slipper is falling off. Behind her, a black maid presents her with a bouquet of flowers, clearly a gift from a client, which Olympia doesn't even bother looking at. Every single detail was Manet screaming, "This isn't myth, this is right now. This is Paris, this is real." The model who posed for Olympia was a woman named Victorine Murat, one of the most important models in Impressionist history, and a painter herself. She'd already posed for Manet's other scandalous work, Le Déjeuner sur l'herbe, Luncheon on the Grass, where she sits fully nude, having a picnic with two fully clothed men, staring just as boldly at the viewer. Why Parisian society lost it? When Olympia was shown at the 1865 Paris Salon, the reaction wasn't just criticism. It was outrage bordering on hysteria. Critics called her ugly, called her a female gorilla, described the painting as vulgar and offensive to French taste. One writer said crowds gathered in front of it just to laugh and jeer. Here's the thing. French audiences had zero problem with nudity itself. Nude Venuses hung in the same salon every year without controversy. What broke people was the honesty. Olympia wasn't pretending to be a myth. She was clearly a real woman, doing a real job, looking back at men with total control over the moment. Not shame, not submission, not availability. Just a flat level. I see you looking. That gaze took the power dynamic that painting had quietly relied on for centuries, where the usually male viewer looks at a passive nude body and the body never looks back, and broke it completely. The painting technique was also a scandal. It wasn't only the subject. Manet's brushwork itself was considered an attack on good painting. Instead of smooth, polished, almost photographic realism the way academic painters worked, Manet used flat color, harsh lighting, and visible brushstrokes. Olympia's skin looks lit by a flash rather than by soft candlelight. Critics said it looked unfinished, sketch-like, almost crude. But this flatness is exactly what later art historians point to as the birth of modern painting. Manet wasn't trying to trick your eye into thinking you were looking through a window at reality. He wanted you to know you were looking at a painting, paint on canvas, made by a person about modern life. That single idea is basically the seed that grew into Impressionism and eventually into modern art as a whole. Manet had done this before. This wasn't Manet's first scandal. 2 years earlier, Le Déjeuner sur l'herbe caused a similar uproar. A nude woman casually picnicking with clothed men was rejected from the official salon and shown instead at the Salon de Refuses, a separate exhibition specifically created for all the paintings the official jury had refused. That show became legendary. It was basically the birthplace of avant-garde art in France, a giant room full of rejects that ended up more important than the show that snubbed them. So by the time Olympia appeared 2 years later, Manet already had a reputation. But this time, the painting was actually accepted into the salon, which somehow made people angrier. It felt like an insult had been let inside the building. What happened after? Manet was so shaken by the backlash that he left Paris for a while. But over time, the tide turned completely. Painters like Claude Monet, Edgar Degas, and later Paul Cézanne saw Manet as the person who broke painting free from myth and academic polish and pointed it directly at real, modern life. The Impressionist movement that followed owes an enormous debt to what Manet did in that one canvas. Today, Olympia hangs in the Musée d'Orsay in Paris, considered one of the most important paintings in the history of Western art. Not because of nudity, but because it was the moment painting stopped pretending and started staring back. The real lesson. The scandal was never really about a naked body. It was about eye contact. It was about a woman refusing to be a passive object for the viewer, and instead becoming a person with her own gaze, her own indifference, her own power in the room. That's what actually terrified 1865 Paris. Not skin, but agency. And that's usually the pattern with controversial art throughout history. It's rarely the explicit content that causes the outrage. It's the moment art tells the truth about something everyone already knew, but had agreed not to say out loud.